Well, Happy New Year, everybody. My name is Herb. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to our continuation of our Big Book 12-Step workshop. We're still praying for intervention, for an open mind and an open heart, for a clean slate, to have new knowledge and new information and new experience, to be taken to a place that we've begun to suspect, but we have never been there. Hold that during the entire journey. A sense of willing to be surprised. And join me in the set-aside prayer. God, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my brokenness, the 12 steps, and you, for an open mind and a new experience of myself, my brokenness, the 12 steps, and especially you. Please join me in the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And so we're in step 4, and we're at a very interesting place. We've looked deeply at our resentments. We've looked at who did what they did, and how it impacted me. Columns 1, 2, and 3. Hopefully you've done some work on column 3, and you've got a sense of and some traction with new information and new experience with your beliefs. That's the key word in the third column, are the beliefs. But where we left off was an assignment that I gave you to take a look at a couple of pages in the big book in between what I call column 3 and column 4 instructions. At the bottom of page 65, it says, when we were finished, we considered it carefully. Well, I've jumped the gun with you. I'm not waiting until you're finished with your third column. Many times with people I do, depending on their level of progress with the 12 steps and their own level of recovery. But in the workshop, I've begun to get a certain amount of experience for you with the third column, and then get into that next assignment concerning deep resentments. Because why wait? If you have a tool that will bring healing sooner than later, why would we wait? At least that's my current approach to it. The first thing apparent, page 66, was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got, columns 1, 2, and 3. Before we ever approached the step work, or maybe actually even doing the step work and believing the oft heard quote in a meeting, which is just not correct. The question, what's your part in your resentment? Let me be assured you're going to see the truth of this statement, even if you don't hear it or believe it right now. You don't have a part in your resentment. And by the way, that's not what the book asks us anyway. It doesn't ask the question, what is your part? We'll look at it next week as I unpack the fourth column. It says, what is your role? Hugely different. Sounds maybe subtle, but I'll unpack the substantial nature of that difference. You don't have a part in your resentment. You have the whole thing, 100%. And just ask yourself this question. Whose anger is it? Oh, it's mine. It's my anger. It comes from me. It arises in me. It has its source in me. Oh, sure, it's connected to an event of yesterday or last week or last month or last decade or 4 decades ago. It's connected to people and circumstances. But that's because we connected. More about that next week. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Here you are with whatever recovery you have, the number of years, the number of journeys through the steps. And if you still have a resentment towards somebody, something's amiss. Sometimes it was remorse and then we were sore ourselves. I get the question all the time. Can I put myself on the resentment list? Yeah, the big book says you can. Remorse, and then we are sore ourselves, or regret, for instance. We'll talk more about that. But the more we fought and tried to hold our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Seemed is in italics. Special attention, highlight. It means that we believe a delusion. We believe a lie. Seem to, but not really. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. That's the warm-up. Now he's going to get into the instruction. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment. Oh, he's making a progressive instruction to us here. We made a list of resentments, but they were just a list of resentments. Now he's making a distinction with this adjective, deep. It's a relative term. You have to come to grips with what does it mean. I had 8 deep resentments, meaning that they had tentacles down into my gut, into my heart, into my very marrow of my bones. My father was dead 12 years, but I had volcanic hot rage, lava rage toward my father. 48 years old, 4 years sober. I had done a lot of therapy around it. It had not mitigated it. No, it hadn't. I didn't know that until I began doing this work. Deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. And with the alcoholic whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. A pretty dramatic phrase, infinitely grave, but then he reinforced it in black and white. We found that it is fatal. It will put you in the grave. And science is conclusive. You can look almost anywhere in critical research, medical research, statistically significant research, and you'll see the correlation between resentment and cancer, resentment and heart attacks, resentment and strokes, resentment and depression. And Bill gives us a spiritual reason. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit. Many quotes prior to this, especially in steps 2 and 3, he talks about the sunlight of the Spirit deep down inside of us. The sunlight is not us, but it is in us, Bill said. Remember that on page 55? The answer to the questions from page 45, where and how are we going to find that power? And he says it twice, deep down inside. And he talks about the sunlight of the Spirit underlying the totality of things. He said someplace around page 25, 27, I think. The sunlight is in us, but we have these clouds in us. Resentment is a cloud that blocks us from the sunlight. So the sunlight, although it's in us, it can't shine in us to us. Obviously, then it can't shine in us, to us, and through us to anybody else. If we're living in the spiritual malady, that's what we're transmitting. We're contagious. We're contaminated. We have, and you can see it in the world today, a pandemic of self-centeredness. The insanity of alcohol returns when we are not in effective contact with light. The darkness descends, and we drink again. We return, we relapse, cyclically, progressively. And with us, to relapse is to die. We know that. To die emotionally, to die spiritually, and eventually to die literally, physically. If we are to live, notice the use of the words. Please, I'm a big book literalist and fundamentalist. I look at the words. He doesn't say, if we were to quit drinking. Nope. If we were to manage our addiction. Nope. He says, if we're to live, meaning dealing effectively with our unmanageability, those bedevilments, that self-centeredness, which is the nature of the spiritual malady. We have to be free of anger, not just contain it, not just control it, not just know about it, not just write about it, not just talk about it, not just pray about it. No, we need to be free. See, there's the one word that I think we could hold as our flag. Freedom. Oh, we get fancy with the words spiritual awakening. It's a good word, but freedom's a really good word. Freedom from our addiction, which is the promise of the first 9 steps, and freedom from unmanageability, which is the promise of the next 3 steps, 10 through 12. On a daily basis, we're not cured, but we maintain and expand our spiritual condition by the practice of 10, by the practice of 11, by the practice of 12. A practice. I heard a great line the other day. I may have already mentioned it to you, but it's worth mentioning again. First time I ever heard it, a couple months ago. Life is a practice. God, that's so good for you perfectionists out there. The 30 or 40% of you that have acknowledged your own perfectionists, and there may be more. Life is a practice. Oh, wow. Does that release me from perfection? Does that release me from doing better at all times by my own standard? Oh, I want to do better. I want to be better. But sometimes my criteria are awfully harsh. The grouch and the brainstorm, synonyms for resentment. They don't mean brainstorm here in the psychological sense of a community of people being creative and innovative. That's what brainstorm means in our modern terminology. No, this means like brainstorm, sandstorm, like tornado, like Sahara Desert sandstorm. That's what resentment is in us, turmoil, destructive turmoil. They may be the dubious luxury of normal people, but the alcoholic, these things are poison. Let's look at that. Resentment, dubious, it's doubtful. Luxury, I hear the term all the time, justifiable resentment, justifiable anger. Really? Okay, take a look at it. Dubious, it's doubtful. Luxury, not necessary. Normal. Nobody on this call, by your own self-admission, you're on this call because you're not normal. You've already acknowledged and experienced your own powerlessness, certainly as we've taken that journey through step 1. Powerless in so many different ways, not the least of which is our addiction, but the most of which is over reality and over managing our lives effectively. So here comes the instruction. We turn back to the list. What list? Oh, third column. It holds the key to the future. Wow, that's ominous. This list holds the key to freedom. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. That's not subtle, set aside. Rather than looking at it from the outside coming in, who did what to me and how did it affect me, I'm going to turn it all around. Coming from the inside, looking at the outside. Complete 180-degree shift. I'm moving the needle from south to north. I'm moving the needle from outside to inside. We begin to look the world and its people who really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoings of others, fancied or real, there's a phrase, fancied or real. We'll examine that in the fourth column. Did the event actually happen? Certainly your feelings about the event happened. Those are real. We're not challenging your feelings. But are they based in reality? I found that 5% of my own resentments were not based in any reality. I had just made stuff up. And there's lots of reasons for that, but that's neither here nor there. There was no authentic, objective connection to my resentment and the actual facts, the historical facts. Had the power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered. Here's the key that unlocks the reason for this instruction. We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. Okay, pause for a minute. What does that mean? I'm as powerless over my resentment as I am over my addiction, having no power at all. No power of choice, no power of it. Oh, I can name it. I can describe it. I can understand it. I can do therapy around it. I can write about it. I can talk about it. And some of that will diminish the power of it. In fact, some of it will actually eliminate the power of it. But for deep resentments, I'm powerless. I'm as powerless over my deep resentments as I am over my alcohol. This is our course, number 1. Change your attitude. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. It's not a judgment. It's a shift in our attitude. I'm not going to judge them now, my father, as a jerk. I'm going to say he was emotionally and spiritually sick. That just brings a whole level of softness and release in me toward him. And I can give you the history, chapter and verse as to why it's actually true, which I had never really put much into the equation. The truth of his own reality. It doesn't excuse it. It just explains it. Number 2, though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, column 1, column 2, they, like ourselves, were sick too. Hold on now. He's just taken us to a whole new level. My father is a sick person. I'm the same. Standing on the platform, looking at my father, him looking at me, we're just two human beings. He has his problems. I have my problems. This is what he's saying. It's adopt a new attitude. We're the same. We're human beings, literally doing the best we can, acknowledging it's just not very good. Number 3, prayer. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. That is, get so much misinterpretation in the rooms, and you hear it all the time. If you have anger, if you have a resentment, if you have a disappointment, if you have a disturbance with somebody, pray for them. You know what? It's actually wonderfully effective spiritual practice. It's an authentic legitimate spiritual practice to pray for them. Yes, but that's not what this says. Let's look at it. We ask God. Anytime we're talking to our higher power, that's prayer. We're talking to our higher power, that's prayer. We're asking for something to help us stop. That's what our prayer is. To help us, we're inviting the divine surgeon to come into the surgery room, open this up, and remove the cancer, please. We're asking for surgery. We're asking for healing from this deep resentment for ourselves, so that then we can show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience. I don't like the word pity. It might have been a great word in 1939, but today, at least my connotation, I like the word compassion. Show them the same tolerance, compassion, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. If somebody had cancer and you had some antipathy toward that person, you would soften up in the hospital room when you know they're going to be dead tomorrow. And meanwhile, they're going to suffer. You would hardly hold that antipathy very strongly, usually. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, so this is more of the prayer. This is a sick person. How can I be helpful to this person? God save me from being angry, thy will be done. Inevitably, thy will be done. Bill's final suggestion to us to place ourselves in alignment with reality. He goes on a little bit longer. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. This is probably the center post of all of the instructions in the big book for recovery. If in fact our real problem is the spiritual malady, those bedevilments, self-centeredness, the obvious and logical solution to self-centeredness is the opposite, other-centeredness, in a healthy sense, not in the codependent sense, not in the adult child of an alcoholic sense, not in the Al-Anon sense. The helping is where we're considering their needs and their feelings in balance with our own. The antidote to our self-centeredness is other-centeredness. That's the turning that we committed to in step 3. Turning from a life of cyclical and chronic self-centeredness, unmanageability, to a life that makes an effort to be in parallel with, in alignment with the flow of reality. Paying attention to our relationship with reality itself, God as we don't understand it. Paying attention to how we can contribute to the people in our lives, the community that surrounds us, whether that be our household or our employer or our neighborhood or our church or our fellowship or our friends. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. The key word, helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least, and I add this to the prayer, you'll see that in a minute, God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. My personal journey included getting sober in 1984 and doing this step work for the very first time out of the big book in 1988. At that time, the man gave me the instructions on the 4th column, what I call the 4th column, which is what I'm going to give you an assignment to do for next week. The next paragraph on page 67, read and highlight that next paragraph. You can take a look at the fourth column in the Way of Life document. If you choose to do some work in it, that's fine. I'm not asking you to. I want to unpack it first next week. But the point here is that this first time I went through the work, 1988, I was 4 years sober. I had a powerful experience with column 4. I had no experience with column 3 because, as I indicated some weeks ago, this man gave it to me as a checkbox exercise. And I got nothing out of it. But this second time going through the work 3 years later, this man gave me the instructions that I've given you on column 3, and he also gave me the instructions that I'm giving you now on the removal of deep resentment. The impact of that is startling for me. In 1988, I had 85 resentments, and I had 8 deep resentments, but I didn't know that. I just had 85 resentments, and I dealt with them with the third column cross-check and the fourth column, which I dug deep and I saw my responsibility as 100%, changed my life. Absolutely changed my life at that point. Because finally I was growing up and being an adult and assuming responsibility for my thoughts and my feelings and my behavior for the very first time. But when I was asked in 1991, that 3 years later, that second time through the work, to make a list of resentments, I had the same 85 resentments. I had the same 8 deep resentments. Now, this man asked me to make a list of those deep resentments, or at least check them off, and gave me this instruction to create a prayer for their removal and to then begin praying that prayer every day. He left it up to me, and my approach at that time was very uninformed and with no experience. I had a list of 8. I prayed 8 prayers every day. I don't suggest that for people anymore. They're welcome to do that. Pray once a day for each of your deep resentments all at once. That's fine. But I really suggest that you pray 1 at a time or 2 at a time. And then as they're removed, because they will be, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story here in a minute, we then add the next untreated deep resentment. But my story was in 1991, I began praying the prayer for the removal of these deep resentments, 8 deep resentments, 8 prayers. And I did it every day, and I did it on my knees. That was his suggestion. He also said we don't get on our knees to get God's attention. We get on our knees to get our own attention. An act of submission, an act of humility, an act of subordination. So I followed his direction because I wanted his experience. You make up your own mind on that. But I prayed 8 prayers, 1 for the removal of each of those deep resentments. Nothing happened for 3 months. Daily, nothing happened for 3 months, and I was praying daily. At about 3 months, one of them had no negative energy, and I crossed it off. Within a week or so, the next one, no negative energy, and I crossed it off. So I was praying 8, and then 7, and then 6, and then 5. And like snow in the springtime, they all melted away over the weeks. Now, 3 years later, 1994, I did this work again, and when I was asked to make a list of my resentments, not one of those 85, not one of those deep resentments was on my list, and they've never returned. I have the memory, obviously, of the traumas in my life or the deep resentments in my life. Sure, of course, I have the memory, but there's no negative energy next to it. I'm free. I had others at that time in 1994 that I dealt with. In 2003, when I did the work again, it was 9 years later, and it's the last time I've done the work with a step mechanic, step guide. In 2003, when I was asked to make a list of resentments. I had to call him after a week of prayer and reflection and tell him that I didn't have any resentments. I hadn't had resentments for years. He gave me a couple words, as I mentioned to you. Who irritates you? Who annoys you? I got 10 immediately because there's lots of mosquitoes in our lives, but very few white shark anymore. I'm asked all the time, well, when should I start? When you want to be free. When you want to be free of deep resentments, you can start. I would suggest that you create a prayer or adopt the prayer that I use, or take it and make it your own prayer with your own words. It's on page 24 in the Way of Life document. And just to make sure that we're clear, it's, for instance, God, or whatever the word is that you use from your steps 2 and 3, decisions and commitments. Dad, like me, is a spiritually sick person. Please help me to show Dad tolerance, compassion, and patience. Now, my father was dead 12 years, but I still prayed the prayer this way because I hadn't made my 9th step yet and I wasn't free. Between this prayer and finishing my 9th step, I got free, 100% free of that hot red lava rage that I had for my father. Release me from being angry. Enable me to release this resentment. Remove this resentment. Show me how to take a kindly and tolerant view of Dad. Bring me to accept reality as it is and show me how I can be helpful to Dad. I prayed it the way the book suggests, even though my dad was dead. It had relevance when I did my 9th step, which I'll share later on, if I haven't shared it already. Thy will be done. Now, you can take this and use it, or you can modify it, or you can just create your own prayer in any way that you want, because prayer is not about words. Prayer is about intention. And then go ahead and continue on doing your 3rd column work. Certainly the prayer for the removal of deep resentment, but you don't need to pay any attention to the reading on page 67. We'll put that off for at least a week, and we'll evaluate tonight and next week as to when we will move on.
Wondering about using the resentment prayer for deep resentments. Is it better to pray for all the deep resentments every day, or just pray for 1 to 2 a day until the negative feelings are released?
Yeah, that would be an individual decision. Yes, those are the 2 options that I talked about, and it would be your decision as to how much time you want to allocate to it. I think it's quite sufficient to do 1 or 2 a day until one is removed and then replace it. It wasn't my experience, but it has been my instruction since I began doing the workshops, because I don't want to put too much on a person so that they won't do it. I want to do what you can and will do.
I have a question in terms of if you have any help to figure out what kind of resentments we've got. Like for me, for example, I have the tendency to completely disconnect from my resentments. Like it was a tragedy as a child because I didn't want other people to have any power over me. If somebody hurt me, I would not give the other person the joy of having hurt me. So I would feel like, no, it didn't do anything to me. And I did the workshop with you last year, and then I felt like I should not have any resentments this year. And I tried, when I sat down and I thought about my parents and especially my father, I thought, oh my God, I did so much work on my father last year. And then I tried to feel really deep inside me if there's anything left. And I thought, would I be able to meet my father peacefully for a coffee? And I thought, no, that wouldn't be That
That's
wouldn't be,
that's a
that would not
very
happen.
good creative way of challenging yourself. Nice. Go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, and I guess I'm not the only one struggling to connect to my feelings of anger, and because I tend not to think about my resentments, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. Do you have like a technique or something a tool to figure that out?
Well, 2 or 3 suggestions for you. Number one, of course, is prayer, that set aside prayer every morning as part of your routine of waking up and your prayer practice, if you have one, and if you don't, that should be your prayer practice. Anytime you sit down to the work, to reflect on it, to say the set aside prayer. And if in fact you're not clear whether or not you have any resentment, then begin doing some spontaneous writing about anger, about whatever thoughts or feelings come to you. That's what I mean by spontaneous. Let them arise in you and not be filtered through your head as a confine or a restraint. Like you said, you have a conditioned resistance to even accepting the fact that they impacted you, right? Yeah, that's called repression, by the way. And allow it to flow out through the arm if you're handwriting it, or your fingers if you're using your technology. And but in a stream of consciousness, and allow it to just go onto the paper without syntax or spelling or sentence structure, just like a flow from you out, and see what happens. My first experience with this, in the first time I went through the work, and I don't think I've mentioned this before, is when the man asked me to make a list of resentments, very much like you, I had not allowed the reaction in me of anger to anybody, because I was beyond that, and they were pimples on the back end of a rhino as far as I was concerned. I didn't give them any value, so they couldn't make me mad. But I'm getting dressed for work, thinking about walking into the office, and Bob came to my mind, and I had one of those little 30-second films that went off in your mind, as you're walking in the office. I'm dressing in my closet, I'm getting dressed, but this film is going off of me walking in, him walking up to me, standing in front of me to confront me, and I took out of my pocket, in my imagination, I took out of my pocket a straight razor, and I sliced open his stomach, and his guts fell on the floor. And I go, oh, that's a resentment. For the very first time I connected such rage and emotion to it, I had never seen it before. It was kind of startling. So allow it to bubble like that, and perhaps something will open up for you. Maybe not quite as dramatic as mine, but does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, very much. So yeah, that's a good start to do it. Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much.
Okay, I'm here. Okay, hi there, Herb. So yeah, I'm going to do my column 3. I'll say my set-aside prayer. Sophia, please make me use my wise mind here doing this work with courage and openness. So when I consider my son-in-law, Tony, for hurting and abusing his sons, my grandsons, who are 4 and 7, when he loses his temper. My self-esteem, my deep belief of who I am. I am a most wonderful mother-in-law, supportive, caring, protective, wise for my grandsons, daughter, and son-in-law. I deserve and expect exquisite, loving care for my 2 grandsons. And my fear is, well, I've got quite a few actually here on this, so I hope it's not too many, but I started out with myself. I'm judgmental and critical of my son-in-law. Number 2, I fear that I'm interfering and that I will cause damage in the relationship between all of them and my daughter and everybody. And number 3, there's nothing I can do to protect my grandsons.
All right. Now that
So,
was in self-esteem and the fear. So did you write pride?
yeah, I did. I want to see others I want to see Tony, my son-in-law, treating me as a very wise, wonderful woman, telling others how happy he is to be in my presence, giving me plus beautiful gifts, doting on my every word, asking for advice and following it impeccably.
Yes, of course. And what's your fear?
I said that Tony has deep disdain for me. He sees me of no consequence, and he won't get the help he needs.
All right, all right. Did you do ambition?
Yeah, I've done it all.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I want, my ambition is I want Tony to take parenting classes or therapy or medication to improve his skills in caring for his children and stop abusing my grandsons and be a safe father.
And use me as a sponsor.
Well, only if he wants to.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Only if he's willing.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I don't want to rock the boat.
And
I don't want to wreck anything.
And your fear is?
My fear is Tony will procrastinate and not follow through to change his behavior.
Sure. Security. What do you need and why?
I need my grandchildren to be safe and protected.
Why?
Why? So they will have a beautiful life free of fear.
There you go. And your fear is?
Well, this is what really kind of hit me a lot. The cycle of abuse that Tony suffered as a child continues on generationally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and that's the truth.
That catches me every time.
You bet. So, yeah. Personal relationship.
Personal relationship. I expect fathers to be kind, caring, and work at improving their skills so that they can parent safely and wisely. Fathers protect their family.
Your fear?
My fear is my son-in-law will not change and will continue abusive behavior when he loses his temper.
Yeah.
Like otherwise he's good, like he's a great dad.
Yeah.
Many incidences. So
sure.
So the sex relation, a real an ideal man should always be or is always loving, caring, wise in parenting, child rearing skills. They're studied, and he values the importance of being safe for his children. And my fear for that is that Tony is not wise and able to follow through in this regard.
Yeah.
And then for this question, I had a question here on the real woman. I didn't know whether it should be about me or my daughter.
Yes.
Like his wife.
Both.
So both. So I put it, a real model woman should always protect their sons or their grandsons and be able to be persuasive enough to convince him to change.
Yeah, of course.
I see where that's a little bit.
Yeah. And your fear is?
I fear that I or my daughter are not having influence here and my daughter won't be able to protect them.
Yeah. Yep. Pocketbook?
Well, it was my emotional security, I guess, mine. The worry and stress that my grandsons will be damaged.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether that should be the emotional security of them too, or is it just about me here?
There's no downside to being expensive, to make a note of whatever comes to your consciousness. Yeah.
Well, it came up in my mind that that's all about me when really I am mostly concerned about them,
It's probably both, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And you'll see that it's probably both, and you'll see that even in more detail when you do the fourth column.
Okay, yeah. And my fear is that I'm going to see the abuse continue and my grandsons will suffer. And the big one is that I'm helpless and powerless here.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do. Nothing.
Well, we'll see when we do the fourth column. But anyway, as you wrote it out and now as you read it out, what was your experience with?
Oh, way more powerful when I read it. Like when I was writing it, and nothing, and then when I get to that middle part there, like it's going to continue for generations.
Yeah.
Like it just really bothers me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It takes a new it penetrates a new level in us when when we say it out loud. And
Yeah,
I think that's the benefit of the fifth step, by the way. Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
yeah. Thanks so much,
But
Karen.
anyways, it's a big one. Thanks for listening, everybody.
No, no, thank you for your courage. And um, again, it's half of the story. The other half is in the fourth column, which we'll do in a couple of weeks now. I'm pretty confident based on our earlier conversation.
The resentment for mother spanking me as an infant so that I would sleep better.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Yep. What's your self-esteem?
I am an exquisite, beautiful infant full of trust, innocence, and to be cherished. My fear is that I'm unworthy of mother's love and affection, and she did not love me.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about this now. You're talking, you said infant. So I'm just wondering about now the memory and the emotion and the feeling about it. At this point, what are you remembering? How are you remembering something from what age were you actually?
Well, I was an infant. The only way I know about this is her telling in a very swaggered kind of, I double dog dare you to say anything to me for doing this.
Okay, so what your resentment is about the event, but really is about your mother telling you about it and her swagger, as you said, in the relating it to you. Her almost uncaring way and daring way of sharing it with you.
There is that also.
Yeah.
And she did this to my sister as well.
Yeah, because you actually don't have a direct memory of the event, but you have a memory and experience with your mother telling you about the event. So that's really what the resentment is.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I'm speculating, but go ahead with the pride then, please.
Mother, I should be seen as mother treating me as a precious gift, tenderly, patiently, and carefully and affectionately treating me as a because I matter superbly. And my fear is that I cannot trust and that it's gone on too long and that I am permanently damaged.
Ambition.
I want to love, accept, and validate and soothe myself without addictive behaviors. And my fear is that I will remain tethered to fear of powerful people, and I will be forever in fear and abandonment. And my security is I need verbal and physical affection, validation, and comfort. And why? Because I lack an internal modifier. And my fear is that I will be at the mercy of others to feel okay. My personal relationships is I expect mother to have recognized her abuse and apologized. Dad should have protected me. And my fear is that I can't let go of this story and cut being a victim. Real men should be protective, providers, strong, masculine, and rational. And my fear is that I will find fault with any man. I will always be a victim and dissatisfied. A real woman should be soft, tender, kind, compassionate, smart, physically beautiful. And my fear is that I never measured up to the beauty mother wanted me to be. My pocketbook, nothing should interfere with, affect, or lessen my value or well-being. and my physical security, and my fear is that my value depends on others. I am a puppet.
Okay. All right. A couple of things. Well, I'm going to ask the same question I ask everybody, and that is, as you wrote it out, and now as you've read it out, what's your experience with that? In terms of your beliefs, what did you see or experience in terms of your beliefs in light of your analysis here?
That I really require and need a lot more compassion in my life than I've been given. And I have paid a lot more attention to the harsh verbal self-talk that I give myself, and that needs to be radically changed, and that I require a lot of healing, and I have dismissed this my whole life, and I think that I chose it because I felt that it was germane, because it started so early and it was so fierce. And if I saw somebody doing that across the street, I would call protective services.
Yeah, but that's an expression of your resentment right now.
Okay.
You want to fix it, and you want to fix the world for all of this.
Well, I want to let go of the iron grip that I have around this story.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Exactly. And I was struck by I think the right word is permeation. The way this belief, the way you were treated, or at least your memory of it, or your emotion to your mother's telling you of it, has permeated the beliefs in so many of the other areas about your relationships and with your relationship with the world, I guess, or other people. But I also saw there, I'm assuming that you'll do a resentment on your father.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I will.
This is kind of gut-wrenching, but here I go. First, I want to read my set-aside prayer. Father, please set aside everything I think I know of my past. The Holy Spirit, rise up in me and open my mind to a new experience. And Redeemer, please cut out these deep-rooted lies and emotions. So this is about my ex-husband, and he reneged on our agreement. So my self-esteem, I am worthy of respect, honor, and devotion, to be held in the greatest esteem and appreciated. But my fear was that I'm really seen as less than worthy, disrespected, and also dishonored.
All right. Yeah.
My pride. He and I are on a stage, and I want people to see him treating me as an adored wife, more and most desirable, clothed in royalty and flowing garments, the queen of the world to be cherished.
All right. Yep.
But my fear was he will shame and ridicule me, which he did.
Yeah.
My ambition, I want him to live up to the ideals of our youth, the devoted husband providing for my dreams.
Yeah.
My fear was that his drinking and selfishness will rob me and my children of my dream, of my dream life. My security, I need him to faithfully devote to me.
Why?
Because I can then be home to raise my children.
Okay. All right. Great.
But the fear was that he will squander and leave, that I'll never live my dream of the perfect wife and mother.
Yep. All right.
My personal relations. I expect my husband to provide all the money, love, devotion it takes for me to be the center of the perfect home.
Yes. Yes.
And my fear,
centerfold.
yes, he never saw or intended to live up to the bargain. He never really took the oath honestly.
Yeah.
sex relations about men and my husband, the breadwinner, the supporter and protector of the family. And the fear was his willingness to walk away shreds my hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
Then for the ideal mother, to be a loving, nurturing partner and mother, self-sacrificing, willing to settle less. And my fear is she's actually self-centered, demanding, and non-relenting, which is exactly, yep, there you go. And my pocketbook, nothing should interfere with, affect, or lessen my dream of financial and physical security, perfect home life, and reputation.
And your fear?
And my fear is I will be exposed as a fraud, will have to leave my children and work outside the home.
Yeah. Wonderful job as you stretched it and exercised it as you went through it. What was your experience as you wrote it? Because you did a really nice job. And now as you shared it out loud.
I thought I had never gone this deep before. Yeah. So in my dealing with the resentment, I thought I had on a superficial level forgiven him for his faithlessness and his infidelity and everything he did, and accepted it that that's the way it was. I went on and got remarried, right?
Yeah.
I never allowed myself to go back to those soul pacts that we made before we married. This is our plan. This is what we're going to do. And this is what we committed to do. Yeah. And when not, well, here's something that I didn't write down on there, but what this really brought up that now I have to write about is that before we were married, I was not faithful. Okay. But that was all over, right? Then when it comes for full circle and it took everything, every dream I had away from me, something you shared, what has deformed us? Now I'm open to look at how that deformed me.
Yeah.
And seeing that deep hurt again and experiencing it on this level, this worksheet literally transformed everything about that for me, because it made me look deeper than here's the facts. Shame on him.
Yeah.
For me,
right.
I'm embarrassed and ashamed.
Yeah.
And it took that, and it took it so much deeper. I would have never gone there or allowed myself to go it. And yet here's that deep root now that's getting pulled out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. I really can't.
We live in the lie that we create until we see it for the lie it is, and then it takes us to the truth, and it hurts and it's embarrassing, but it's freeing. I think that's what your experience is.
Exactly, it is.
Yeah.
And now it's opened another hole. You know, it's opened another perspective that I could have never seen, that I didn't see.
That's right.
And I think this is so necessary for the freedom I need to go on to the freedom I seek about my own regrets and shame.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And
the fourth column is a very healing column, even though even there we get more embarrassed in terms of looking at the lie and the motives and the corruption, our own. All right. But again, looking at it and naming it, we get free of it.
The resentment is that a kid I knew when I was in high school was a cheater, and I always felt like I got taken advantage of because of her cheating.
All right.
And do you want to hear my set-aside prayer?
No, I don't, actually.
Okay.
I want to hear your self-esteem.
Okay. I believe that I am 100% honest. B, that I would never copy someone else's homework. C, that I'm the most believable. I'm more believable than she is. I would never cheat, no matter what. Yeah,
and your fear is when you say all of that?
Her better grades may reduce my class ranking. Her better grades may give her scholarship offers and reduce my scholarship offers.
Yeah, wonderful, excellent. And pride?
Others should see Louise treating me as a person to get help from. B, Louise begs me to help her. C, Louise says I'm a smarter person, the smartest person she knows or ever will know. And D, Louise advises all in the audience to come to me for advice and help.
Wonderful, very nice.
This
and
thing about the audience was very interesting.
Yeah, it really helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a stretch, but
really?
well, I love being on the stage anyway.
Okay, but as you did do the stretch and as you did do the writing and you look back on it, was it much of a stretch?
Probably less than I was.
That's right.
Okay, next topic, right?
That's it. That's right. What's your fear?
Fears of that, that she will not admit or acknowledge that I am right and that she is a cheater.
Right.
B,
Right.
the teacher may see her as honest when she obviously is not, and the teacher gives her better grades than the teacher gives me.
Yeah.
C, I am seen as less worthy by the teacher for telling on her. 4,
right.
played this.
Go to ambition now.
Okay. What do I want to happen? She admits to cheating. B, admits I am correct and right. Announces, here's the stretch, announces I'm far smarter than she ever will be and than anyone she could ever encounter.
And your fear is?
She denies that she cheated. She is not apologizing to her, and she does not admit that I'm smarter than she.
Yeah. And security, what do you need and why?
I need an apology in public, and I want her to grovel. Why? Because she's a damn Yankee from New Jersey.
Right. Absolutely. Spoken like a real Southerner.
Yeah, right out from Savannah.
And what's your fear when you say that?
She gets better grades, A. B, she ranks higher in the class, and I am no longer top dog. I lose rank to a damn Yankee.
All right. Excellent. Personal relations.
I expect students and friends to work together. I expect them to be honest with each other at all times and always come to the rescue of each other.
Yes. And your fear?
When I fully trust people, I may get hurt seriously. I'm not as honest as I thought I was. And another fear that I may be found out as not completely fraud free.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
So,
And gender relations?
okay. I work for the male. I used the teacher in that situation because it was a male teacher.
Yep.
The teacher should be exceptionally honest, listen to students, seek feedback and input from students, be fair in the treatment to all students.
Sure.
And then the fear was when I trust people, I may get hurt. And B, the teacher is not empathetic to my reporting on her.
Right. Right. Yep. Right.
And I want to always be seen as having the right answers and having it my way.
Yes.
Female should be honest, tell the truth as you know it, be a role model of friendship, a keeper of secrets, listener, and always do the right thing.
And your fear is?
That she ignores me, I lose social status because students like her for her athletic abilities. She doesn't look up to me as she should for academics. Number 7, pocketbook. Number 1, I put as potential impact on academic ranking in the class, and there were 32 students in the class total. My leadership role and standing with teachers, class peers, and younger students may be impacted. C, my potential financial security and scholarships could be jeopardized. My top dog status then as well as now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fears. And I put the fears in the present time because at the time I didn't have fears.
No, good. Yeah.
That I won't know, don't have access to, or cannot find the right answer when somebody asks me something.
Yes.
B, loss of leadership. That's, again, the loss of the top dog role in church and civic affairs. C, I am the one that people seek out for helping provide advice and recommendations. And that truly happened to me when I was in chemotherapy. My leadership role it vanished. Other people took over.
There you go. That's how irreplaceable you are.
I noticed. And it hurts. It hurts.
Yeah.
And here.
Yep.
So I'm trying to find my way now after that.
Well, you certainly are, and you're very clear. I want to confirm, and very well organized, by the way. I love the way you handled it. And as you wrote it out, and now as you read it out and heard yourself reading it, and our commentary, the little bit that we had, what's your experience with it?
Louise is moving into the wings, and I'm recognizing that this business of me being top dog has long disappeared. When I went to college, I decided that I needed to let other people take leadership roles, and I did less of that stuff in college than I had in high school. And here I am 60 years later, and Louise is still bugging me. But guess what? Louise was the nurse at my father's deathbed. So the lesson I've learned is be careful who you hate. Yeah.
All right. There's many more lessons I'm assuming that we'll have conversations about on our journey. Thank you so much for sharing what you shared. And I just love the way you say top dog. Just love that.
Well, go dogs.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
When I remember my father for blaming my mother for not wanting another child and touching me inappropriately. My self-esteem, I am worthy of having a sibling. I am worthy of remaining innocent and being treated with respect.
Okay.
And my fear is of being worthless, of crazy, and being damaged goods.
Yes. Pride.
Others should see my father treating me as a beloved daughter by cherishing me, maintaining my innocence, and respecting me.
Yes.
Again, the fear I'm unlovable and I'm worthless.
Yeah. And that's such a rich word, cherish, that I would like you to put it up into the self-esteem right now. I want you to put it up there and then read it. I am, as part of what you actually wrote there, but I want you to add cherish to it, please.
I am worthy of having a sibling, remaining innocent, and being treated with respect and cherished.
Yeah. And that's the truth, isn't it?
It really is the truth, because it was that domino, that first domino.
I want to be sensitive to you, and yes, that is correct. Originally, historically,
Yes.
but it's ancient history now, and you can release the story.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, well, not just because I say so, and not just because you make a decision, but I'm saying give yourself the permission and the hope that you can be released from this story. As I mentioned many times, this work that we're doing is sacred work. It's soul surgery work. And the third column is only half of the story. The other half is the fourth column. So I'm just sort of setting it up so that you can release your grip on the story just a little bit. I'm not saying let it go yet, but I want to just sort of signal to you that it's okay to take a little bit of a breath and say, okay, this is going to get better. All right?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful.
So we're up to security.
Ambition, I think.
Oh, ambition. I want you to treat me with respect as an innocent child and protect me.
Yes. And your fear?
My fear is that I'm not worth protecting.
Yes. You know, that's the conclusion of a child that is abused, that I must be worthless in order to be abused this way. It's not a conscious thing, but it is an unconscious interpretation. And that's kind of a foundation of a story that permeates our life until, in fact, we get some awareness that it's in the past and that we can release it and be released from it. So once again, I'm just sort of indicating sort of what to expect as we go forward with this work.
Thank you, Herb.
Yeah.
Security. What do I need in order to be okay, and why? I need you not to touch me in my private parts.
Yes.
It makes me feel dirty.
Yes. All right, good. And your fear?
Again, people will know I'm worthless.
Yeah.
People will know I'm unlovable.
Yeah, right.
I have a fear of remaining silent.
Okay.
And fear of failure based on that.
Yeah.
And my personal relations. How do I expect this relationship should be? Fathers should protect their daughters and not touch them inappropriately.
And your fear is?
I'm unlovable. My fear of intimacy.
Oh, yeah.
And that I'm worthless.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. And you see that's not a redundancy. It's a pattern.
It's a pattern.
There's no right or wrong answer, but what you're seeing is that this is an echo in your marrow of your bones. And it's just an echo in this dark cave.
And you know something else, Herb? In the major ones, like the mother, the grandmother, and it's the same fear that comes up with the resentments. It's
right.
the fears. So it's deep-rooted, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, in fact, Bill, in the fear section, implies that it's so deep that we need prayer to dig it out. In the same way that I talked yesterday about the third column, looking at the deep resentments, because their roots go down into the marrow marrow of our soul, and we need prayer in order to get the healing.
Right. Am I up to personal relations or sex?
Personal relations, please.
Okay. I expect fathers should protect their daughters.
Right.
And again, worthless, unlovable, and the fear of intimacy.
Right.
And a real man should always provide for their family and not sexually abuse their daughters.
All right.
That's a real man.
And your fear is?
And a real woman
Yes.
should say no. Should stop it.
Okay. All right. And your fear is?
Worthless, unlovable, and also the fear of intimacy.
Okay. All right. Pocketbook.
The pocketbook is of the emotional security.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing should interfere with, affect, or lessen my feeling of being chaste, pure, and loved.
Yeah. You've made a relationship there. Yep. All right. Now, as you wrote it out, you clearly have a lot of energy about it. Even as you read it out, you emphasized it in the way of your energy. What is your experience now in both the combination of writing it out and now reading it out?
Well, I've worked this over with a step guide in my group and also with a private therapist. So I've gotten into, I've cried a lot.
Yeah.
I got into the pain. Right now, I'm not experiencing that, because this is major for me. And this I want to be out of.
Yes.
I'm willing to go to any length, Herb.
Yes. No, I believe it. Absolutely. It's a very important dynamic in your own history. And so have you begun the prayer for the removal of deep resentment?
I haven't just yet.
Oh, what are you waiting for?
I'm speechless.
You just expressed a sense of urgency.
Yeah. It's time.
Well, no, it's past time.
It's past time. Yes.
So you can begin after this call by addressing this deep resentment with that prayer for the removal of this deep resentment in whatever fashion that you plan on doing it. All right?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Herb.
I said, I feel irritated and annoyed with Anne for her frequent, in my face, constant ADHD chatter. And I said, my self-esteem. I am the most profoundly knowledgeable and helpful big book program friend she knows. I therefore deserve her undivided attention. Only I know the truth, and my feedback and direction will benefit her more than her sponsors.
All right. And your fear when you say that?
My fear is she does not want or understand what I have. And my real fear is my knowledge has not or may never produce a positive change in me. Therefore, I'm a fraud and should not be sponsoring.
Okay. Two very different fears, and wonderful that you saw them. And it's a parking space for them. You don't need to give them much attention at this point. But, you've got two very distinct fears, which you will, in fact, take a look at and analyze when we get to the fear inventory. But let's go ahead with the third column, unpacking pride.
Okay. So others should see Anne treating me as her most knowledgeable and helpful program friend. She will get out her pen and paper when I enter the room, eagerly anticipating my every word.
That's wonderful. I mean, you really gave it some color. That's great. And your fear is?
Well, I said, and she will seek out my feedback even before her sponsors.
Yes, of course.
And my fear is I'm not that knowledgeable or important, and I'm not sought out for feedback or sponsorship. My ambition, what do I want to happen? I want her to listen to me and follow my suggestions rather than overwhelming me with her chatter.
Yeah.
My fear is she will not be quiet and ask me for my pearls of wisdom. And my security, I need her to listen to me and value my feedback and do as I do and suggest. Why? This is how I think I will get the pride, recognition, and approval I need to be okay, to feel important, and to be effective as a communicator.
Yep.
So security seems to be the one I get the most out of.
Okay.
But I said,
yeah, I think it can be a deep scoop into the ditch. Yes.
And I said, she will not stop her chatter and ask for my feedback, and I will not get the praise, recognition, and approval I need and want, and will continue to feel ineffective as a person.
Yeah.
And my personal relations, I expect AAOA members to see me as a special and knowledgeable of Big Book and program and an effective sponsor. And I said, I am not that special or knowledgeable. I am not an effective sponsor communicator, and I'm scared I will eventually give up even trying to sponsor. And my sex relations, the ideal man would be recovered, actively working program, has a sponsor, he's respectful of women, their opinions and knowledge. And I just said, men will not respect me for my opinions and knowledge. And then I said, ideal woman, recovered, has sponsor, works program, sees herself and contribution as equal to men, and she's a team player. And I said, I will continue to not see myself as a leader, I guess, or team player. No, I'm a team player as a leader. So pocketbook, what is my effective value? So nothing should interfere with or affect or lessen I kind of get emotional security and well-being mixed up, but I said emotional security or well-being by diminishing the time, effort I put into learning the Big Book and trying to work this program, whether I am an effective communicator or not. So my fear is I will continue to diminish myself and I will quit trying to work program and sponsor.
Okay, so you're very clear. I'm confirming that. What's your experience as you wrote it out and now read it out loud?
I think that, I don't know, I had more of an experience earlier. So I think that I just have this strong need for this praise, recognition, and approval. And if people don't give it to me, I guess I blame myself.
Well, and in the fourth column, so you're beginning to see a truth here because of the pattern. And in the fourth column, the underlying motives will be revealed. The third column is about your beliefs. You got real clear on that. All right. You get your sense of value from other people's value of you.
Yeah.
Well, that was dominant, right? And in the fourth column, you will, I believe, unpack what the motives are that are driving that. And that might help. That might be helpful. Okay. While you're doing that, I
Okay.
would suggest that you ask yourself and maybe even write out a sentence or two about what does it mean to have a friendship?
Okay.
Do you really, this is the second question, do you really care for this person? And what does that mean?
Okay.
And the third question is, what prevents you from being direct with her so that you give her feedback on her ADD chatter?
Now that was one, but I thought that might come later. That I'm just totally dishonest with people. I don't tell them what I'm thinking.
Well, that'll come in the fourth column. That's why I'm setting you up to
Okay.
sort of see these motives. Yeah, because one of the 5 questions that are in the big book about this as part of the fourth column is, where am I being dishonest?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I really saw that.
Yep.
So,
All
okay.
right. Thanks
Very
very
good.
much.
Thank you.
You bet.
I'd like to read my third column about my son. He's 17 and he has ADHD.
All right.
So I resent him for being a source of shame and humiliation. So self-esteem. I am a super perfect mother. No one could be luckier than to have me as a mother. And my fear is it's my fault and I should be able to fix it.
Right.
Pride. Other people should see my son treating me as a sacred source of wisdom and kindness. My fear is that I am to be dismissed.
You all right?
Ambition. I want to be filled with pride and admiration for my son. And my fear is that I may never feel that way. Security. I need my son to function normally. And why? So I don't have to take care of him. And my fear is he may never manage that.
Yeah.
And he'll be my problem for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Personal relations. I expect sons should be popular, capable, smart, considerate, mature, and independent. And my fear is that he may always struggle.
Yeah.
The ideal man is independent, reliable, smart, respected, popular. And my fear is that he may be dependent and disrespected and unpopular. And the ideal woman should be admired and supported and respected. And my fear is that I may be disliked, unsupported, and disrespected. And pocketbook, financial and emotional security. I should not have a child depend on me so much for material goods and require my emotional attention. And my fear is that I may always need to offer too much emotional and material support.
Yeah. 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 Well, you're very clear on this, and as you wrote it out, and now as you read it out, you certainly touched some nerves in you, some feelings deep inside of you about it. What's your experience with it, the overall column 3?
I feel like one of those sort of angry dogs guarding a bone, like so fearful and defensive and ready to. I got a sense of a lack of my faith, a lack of my relationship with my higher power, and thinking and my controlling self, and how very bite and pounce I am inside.
Yeah. Yeah. You will see more in the fourth column. The one thing that maybe more than one that I want to make comment on is you made a comment about you. I think in ambition that you wanted to be able to admire your son. And,
Yep.
And I just want you to I want to plant a seed in you, asking the question, what prevents you from admiring your son? In other
Yep.
words, that's totally available to you, unless you're waiting for external approval from society, culture, other men, or other people.
Yep.
See what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's come up in other resentments. So yes, that's good.
And then you indicated, and you'll see more of this in the fourth column, but I'm trying to plant seeds. You said, I want my son to be normal.
Yep.
And are you in a 12-step program?
Yes.
Which one?
Fortunately, I've joined Al-Anon.
Oh, well, that is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And why did you join Al-Anon?
For relationships. About this relationship, I am committed to being, being guided by my higher power and releasing this relationship I have with my son. That's definitely deep down in my heart. It's just, this is the reality I kind of filter my life through. So I want to, that's what I'm there for. Yeah.
It's wonderful. You're doing some courageous, wonderful work. You're in Al-Anon for how long?
Oh, not so long, about 8 months. I was in
that's
FA
wonderful.
before that.
No, that's great. And you've been attending this workshop, have you, regularly?
Yes.
And
yes,
so
yes,
what was your experience with step 1?
It's a relief.
Yeah. So what did you see in terms of your own brokenness?
That I am powerless over this.
Okay. So you're powerless, meaning there's something deficient in you that makes you different than other people who don't need Al-Anon, right?
Yes.
By definition, then you're not normal, right?
Yeah, absolutely not normal.
How soon will you be made normal?
I look forward to releasing that delusion. Thanks.
Oh, there you go. That's where I was going with this. Once a pickle, always a pickle. Your son is not normal. He has a genetic disposition to ADD. It can be managed, but he will never be normal.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard reality. I've got 3 grandsons on medication. All 3 of them, each of them I have 3 adult children. Each of them has a boy that has ADD or ADHD, depending. And so I'm very familiar with the dynamic that goes on, and it's challenging. But there are solutions, and you know that now. You're pursuing that. But I wanted to make the point that your ambition of his being normal, and you just nailed it. You said it's a delusion that you and or now him will ever be normal.
Yes. It's unfortunately been the filter I use, but I'm here to give it up.
Well, and your willingness is exactly what's necessary. And then this work, and the mystery is that grace will smooth this thing out. Somehow, somewhere, someplace, sometime.
Yes. I'm just grateful to be here. Grateful, very grateful. Thank you for this conversation.
Well, it's a lot of courage to do what you're doing, and you can take this to the bank. There's hope, there's blue sky, there's sunshine on the other side of this work for you, which will create a much better environment, obviously, for your son.
This is a resentment that is also, I have 3 deep resentments, and the rest of them are not so deep. And I have many memories of resentments that I've let go of. And this happens to be one that I'm not clear about. I don't know if it's a memory or if I've still got it.
I'm glad that you did the work on it. That's great.
I just thought about this idea about sitting down and having coffee with her. I actually ended this relationship. She's a lifelong friend from like the 6th grade, 15 years ago. But I thought if I sat down to have coffee with her, my defenses would really, they would be up.
Yeah.
So I decided, to go through it. So I resented Lori when we went on an Alaskan cruise for leaving me behind to go exercise with her sister Beth, and then to go with her sister Beth and her brother-in-law Phil. When we were going on a dog sled ride, we're getting on the dog sled. She says, "Oh, I'm going to go with them." And I was left I just went with some strangers. And I also, I did this 2 ways. I'm going to do the exaggerated way. So in terms of self-esteem, I wrote down that I am a most important, fun-loving, wise, wonderful person and the greatest friend in the world. And that Lori is lucky to have me. I'm having a little I don't know that I feel that strongly about it, but the other thing that I'd written was I'm worthy of time spent with me and worthy of respect, not just as a financial asset. My fear is that Lori sees no value in being with me except what I can contribute financially to a trip, because that was how it all started, was she needed it from me. When in Pride, when I put myself on a stage, I wrote, others should see Lori treating me as a valuable person, showering her love, attention on me, basking in the glow of being in my radiant presence with all the charm, intelligence, wit, love, and fun I offer, that perhaps, no one else would offer her. The fear was that others are saying or assuming that I really don't have any value because Lori would rather spend time with other people, her sister on the trip, than me. And she only wanted help financially. Under ambition, I wrote, I want to be treated as if I matter. Certainly as much as, her sister on this trip, which seems ridiculous to me because I'm not going to matter as much as a sibling. I don't think anyway. And then under fear, I wrote, that after being friends with her since we were 12 years old, that I don't matter at all, to Lori. Under security, I wrote that I need to be included, as if what I say and want to do matters, and that others want to spend time with me. And as my greatest fear, I wrote, I have nothing of value to say and others aren't interested in me. Under personal relations, I wrote that I expect friends, family, colleagues, etc., should treat me in a kind way, enjoy spending time with me, and be inclusive, including me in activities. And under fear, I wrote, well, the opposite of that is that no one wants to spend time with me. I had a question here because under sexual relations, I really didn't write anything down under the ideal or model man because it didn't seem applicable. Is that right?
I mean, it's a choice on your part. If there's no men involved, it's always interesting. So what perspective did you have from the woman's standpoint? What was your definition there?
Yeah, I will read this. And I could say that that whether it's a man or a woman, but the ideal model woman who is a friend should always respect their friends, treat them with kindness, and enjoy spending time with me. And then I wrote down the opposite of fear. It said, my female friends are only interested in what I can do for them. But I have a bunch of female friends now I don't have that kind of relationship with them.
Well, but you didn't talk about the relationship. You talked about your fear. Do you have, it sounds like it's an underbelly fear that might permeate other things. So you don't have, I mean, think about it, and it's not like it's all going to be true or all going to be false. It's just an effort to surface what are your unconscious feelings and beliefs about these various things.
Well, and just listening to that, it's like, I think my unconscious feeling is that there's, I feel very hurt. Somebody I've known since I was 12 years old. I mean, I traveled the world with this person. I went on 4 very big trips and other small ones. And I did feel hurt. And I guess I have a friend that long, maybe that's where it is. Somebody in my life for that period of time, I wanted more. I wanted more than maybe what I ended up getting.
Yeah.
Under the pocket. Yeah. See, that's making me choke up a little bit.
Okay.
To have somebody, a friend for that long. Under pocketbook, I said, no one should want me to accompany them on a trip unless they truly want to spend time with me and not use me for my money to share the expenses. And the fear is that Lori only wanted me to come because of the financial contribution I could make to the trip. Yeah.
And it might get a little better fleshed out in the 4th column. So don't come to a conclusion yet. What you're doing now is you're raising questions, you're raising speculation.
Yep.
Yeah. And allow it just to be without a conclusion at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm just going to say one more thing, because somebody mentioned something in my study group. I can't even remember exactly what it was, but, I guess I'm having a hard time not jumping to conclusions, because I'm seeing this need, this attention thing, and this value thing, and this worthiness thing in other resentments. And I feel as though it goes back to my dad. But my dad isn't one of my deep resentments, because I spent a ton of time on it, and I don't have those feelings anymore. And he and I talked, and I spent years on my dad because I have the memory of like hating his guts. I mean, I have, really horrible memories of how I used to feel, but that's all gone now.
Well, that for your father is gone.
Exactly.
But does it have taproots that moved out from your father into other relationships of either friendship and or males?
Yes, I believe that it does.
Well, you just, in fact, made that connection yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So does that mean I think I'm done with my dad, but I'm not done with my dad? Or does it just mean that it's residual within me?
I think you're done with it, from what you're saying. You're done with your dad, but there's residuals that have other echoes. I seem to be wanting to use that word today, that has other echoes in you with your other relationships, which now you need to deal with.
Yeah. That echoes. I like that word here. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. In going back to security, if you don't mind, I let it go at the time. There's 2 questions in security. What do you need and why? And I didn't hear why. Did you write it or?
No, I skipped right over it.
No, a lot of people do, because it's a secondary question, but spontaneously read it again, what you wrote as what you need, and then spontaneously answer the question.
I need to be included as if what I say and want to do matters, and that others want to spend their time with me. And the reason I need it is because I grew up in a household, a family with parents who felt, children should be seen and not heard, and that what I had to say and what I wanted to do was unimportant and of no consequence.
Yeah. Yeah. So in order to feel of some value.
Yes.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It moves up the shadow of that.
Yeah. And again, that seems to be very relevant to the actual conversation that we just had about residuals.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you.
So my resentment against my mum for having the attitude of what will people think. I am the controlled, manipulated son, voiceless.
Yeah, no, that's the psychological, and it's also, when we get to the fourth column, going to be capturing the role. This is the role, that story that you've told yourself. I'm manipulated and I'm voiceless. All right. You're the victim.
Yeah.
All right. Now, it may have been true when you were 4 years old. It's hardly true today. But you still have the resentment as if it's still relevant today. So just park that. It's a really wonderful phrase. What else did you write there in terms of self-esteem?
That was it. Just
okay. So then
now,
go ahead.
Yeah, and just now I thought, or just before I thought, am I the perfect son? Is that a more accurate self-esteem?
Well, let's go to pride and see what you wrote there.
Okay, so pride. Others should see my mum treating me as, applauding me when I voice my opinions or beliefs.
So they're applauding you because I am fill in the blank. They're applauding you because I am fill in.
You're the perfect son.
Okay, so blow it up a little bit. Can you give it a few more words, adjectives? You're on a stage with your mother, and the audience are your friends and your family, and you want them to see your mother treating you in a particular way because you are, I am
perfect. I am always right, and my opinions should be valued,
Good. Yes, that works nicely. I am the perfect son. My opinions are always right, and I should be listened to. That works as self-esteem. So that might actually answer the question that I couldn't quite grasp when you were starting with. So the way you started with self-esteem was that psychological self-esteem, and I say put that aside for right now.
Yep.
All right. So what did you write for fear, both in the self-esteem and pride?
So in self-esteem, people won't trust what I think or value. And the pride was, I will not always speak my truth, my convictions.
Okay. All right. And then ambition, what did you write?
I want to speak up about my beliefs, ideas, values, and opinions.
And your fear?
And the fear is I will remain silent so I don't draw criticism or contempt.
Sure. And security, what do you need and why?
I need to be able to speak up without fear.
Why?
To be true to myself, no masks.
Good, nice. Fear?
That I will be silent.
All right. Personal relations?
I expect mothers to nurture and encourage open discussion without shaming or wanting to hide beliefs, etc.
Yeah. And your fear?
Criticism, contempt, judgment.
Yeah. Gender?
A real man should always encourage open discussion without shutting down the talking. Encouraging open, supportive, nurturing. Encouraging open, supportive, nurturing. I had the same for both like a male parent and a female parent.
Okay, all right. And your fear in both cases?
I'm a fear ridicules, criticizes, shuts down the conversation.
Yeah. And your pocketbook?
Nothing should interfere with my emotional security. I should not be cut out because of my beliefs or values. So cut out of the friendship or the conversation.
Yeah. And your fear.
Others will write me off, reject me, ridicule me, abandon me.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good. All right. A new word. All right. Great. So as you wrote it out, and now as we clarified it and you read it out, what's your experience with it?
Yeah, I still, it's still very messy in parts.
It hasn't connected to you yet. How many, have you done more than the one?
Not on this issue, but I can see it linking into other fears, the abandonment and other fears.
My question was, have you done
yes,
more
I have done other
3 worksheets? Yeah, the column 3
done.
worksheets. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
and what's your overall experience with doing the column 3 worksheets?
Oh, I can see that my beliefs had, my core beliefs were very old and had not treated me well today. Certainly with this one, I can see that attitude has led me to be silent, like the
Right.
what will people think attitude has led me to be silent far too often. Yeah. Speaking
More
up
than you wanted, more than is healthy for you, you're saying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
This has to do with a piano teacher when I was a junior in high school, after taking piano for years with him.
Mm-hmm.
I resent Mr. Magro for turning his back on me and telling me I could leave by the fire escape after a failed piano recital. Self-esteem. I am an elegantly playing piano student doing beautiful work. My fear is I play like shit and everyone is better than I am. My pride, others should see Mr. Meg treating me as a student of piano of glowing potential, brilliant even. His eyes twinkle with admiration.
Good.
I'll not learn. I'm a dense, impossible pianist. I want to play piano easily, seamlessly, so that I can ignore Mr. Magro. And my fear is I'll need him to like me, and I won't succeed. The security, I need to be the best student. Then I'll be untouchable. Nobody will be able to bring me down. My fear is as a regular, normal student, I won't matter. Sounds like a theme.
Yeah.
I expect a teacher to be supportive of a student's efforts, and my fear is I will remain ignorant. A real man is upholding and supportive of women's endeavors. My fear is men will drop you as soon as you feel safe. A woman should always be polite in the face of a catastrophe. My fear is I'll lose my grace by opening my mouth. And nothing should interfere with or lessen my security. And until tonight, I really didn't identify what I've just security, not really slotting it, but I would guess well-being. And my fear is nothing is secure.
Yeah. All right. So go ahead. As you wrote it now, as you read it out loud, you're very clear. Yeah.
It stunned me how this stuff is bedrock and decisions were made from this point in time.
Yeah.
And as I went down in my fears, just the globalness of being ignorant, and losing my grace by opening my mouth. When it came out of my hand, I thought, wow, that's not even about the piano. That's just about my essence.
Yeah.
And then to have nothing be secure, or I will remain ignorant, which infers that I am ignorant. And wow.
Yeah.
And this is not the big hitter thing, so
Well,
Thank you. I just,
yeah, at least that's the story you're telling yourself about it.
mhm.
So again, hold suspense your judgment on any of it until you're unpacking it. It's great that you're looking at it, you're articulating it, you're having an experience. It's kind of like, whoa, look at that, look at that, look at that. Just keep looking. Just keep looking, keep feeling, keep paying attention to it, be conscious of, and then as you do this, at some point, and it may not be until you're actually doing your fifth step, where it will all kind of like a kaleidoscope. We all come into a position where you see a picture and have an experience. Yeah. All right. So please join me in the Serenity Prayer. Do some more of that work. As you can see, it's very life-changing because it gets to the truth. Eventually, with the fourth column, it will explode into the truth. Please join me. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Thanks, everybody.